All right, so here is what our Scratch project is going to look like. So remember, sign in and then just hit create so that we can start with a new fresh document. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our second sprite here. So the main part of this is it's going to be Scratch is catching a ball. That's kind of the main aspect. So I'm going to hit here, double tap twice. We're going to get that new sprite, and we will choose just a plain ball. Feel free to use a different object if you want. You can use two different things if you want. You can use basketball, you can use a bat, whatever the case is that you want to do here. So now that we have that, remember the first thing we always do is we start with our when green flag is clicked. Remember here now we have two different sprites. So you can see we have right here, you can see Scratch right there, so that's our Scratch sprite. But I can click down here and switch between the ball and the sprite if I want to. So we're going to start with the ball though. So I'm going to also bring that when green flag clicked here. And so what we want the ball to do is we want the ball to kind of move around the screen the whole time. So I'm going to go to motions, I'm going to take move 10 steps. And instead of 10 steps, we're going to just change that to 20 so the ball's moving just a little bit faster than normal. And then we'll be good. So our problem here right now, though, is actually just that the ball is moving 20 steps, and that's it. So in order for this to work just a little bit better, we need to get a forever loop. So with our forever loop, then the ball is gonna continually move for 20 steps. But our problem is that the ball just hit the side and stopped. So there's this cool, actually already conditional block that says if on edge, then bounce. So now when it hits an edge, it's just going to bounce off the edge and go. And this is all well and good here, but with the ball just moving sideways, that's not any fun. So we want to start with the ball turning. And it doesn't matter what it's turning. So we'll say 30 degrees, just so it kind of differs up a little bit. And now you can see the ball is turning. But there is just a little bit of a problem if I put this block inside the forever loop, it just goes in a circle. So we want to make sure that we just take that out and that when we start, it goes. So now no matter where the ball is, it's going to start moving around the screen. It'll keep moving forever around the screen. And then if it's on edge, bounce. So once again, this is great, but we want to make something happen when it does. So for that, we're going to go to our controls, and we're going to grab out our if-then block. And our hypothesis here is that we want to make sure that Scratch is catching the ball, right? So if he's touching the ball in this case. So you'll see the shape of this block. Okay, it's kind of pointy, so you know that it can go in that hole. So we have our hypothesis right now that says if it is touching sprite 1, which is Scratch, so that's our hypothesis, and our conclusion is, well, this can be whatever you want to make it. So for me, I'm just going to make it change colors. So we're going to go here to our change color effect by 25. And there we go. So now if the ball is touching Scratch, it changes colors, which is great, which is exactly what we want it to do. So we have our hypothesis, if the ball is touching Scratch, and we have our conclusion, then it changes color. So you can see when the first part is true, then the second part happens. It's also true, right? But I want the ball to only be colored when Scratch caught it. So here we're going to clear the graphic effects when it's not. But the problem here is that this happens instantaneously. So it does go to the if, but then it also clears it right away. So this isn't actually what we want. What we want here is we want our if-then-else block. And what's that going to do is it's going to make if we're touching the sprite, then we want to change the color effect by 25. So the same kind of thing we have going on, our hypothesis and our conclusion. But this time, if our hypothesis is false, then we want something else to happen. So if Scratch is not touching the ball, then we clear the graphic effect. So with this block that I no longer need, I can just throw back here, it'll erase it, and we'll put this back here. And now When the hypothesis is true, our conclusion is true, which is it changes the color. But when the hypothesis is not true, it changes the conclusion to clear graphic effects, so it's gone. And this is the basic for the code, right? So if you are able to code this, then you're able to get your points for just doing the basics. But the challenge here is going to be to add 3 different things. Once again, you can kind of decide what those 3 additional features are going to be. And remember, you can code Scratch as well. So if you want to add stuff to the ball, you can add it in here, but you can also go over to Sprite 1 and you can add some code here if you want. So when I talk about adding stuff, I'm really okay with whatever you want to do. If you go to tutorials up here, which is right next to like file edit, there's tutorials with a light bulb. You can really get some help on some of the stuff that you might be interested in. So if you want to change size of something, if you want to record a sound, make a spin, if you want to use the arrow keys to make Scratch move, all of that information is here. You can also, I believe in the games section, find out how to do a scoreboard or something like that so that you can kind of keep track of that, of how many times Scratch catches the ball. So once again, feel free to do any of that, making a sound when Scratch catches the ball, changing the background when Scratch catches the ball. Any of those things are possible items that you can include in your game. But when you've included those 3 things, then you can go to C Project page here. When you go to C Project page, I'm going to stop this just so the ball's not walking around. When you go to C Project page, you want to change the title. Feel free to change the title to something general like Unit 2 Project. But then the steps that you need to do is you need to share this. So hit the big yellow share button. You need to type instructions here. So this is how we'll know what you added to your program. So for me, I'm going to say something like, when Scratch catches the ball changes colors. Okay. And you want to make sure you add your other instructions, and this is just so that we grade it. Sometimes when I'm grading, the sound is off on my computer, so if you added a sound effect, I'd never know that unless you wrote the instructions. So maybe you want to write here that the background also changes when Scratch catches it. And we can say that Scratch meows, and we can add in here Scratch can move around using the directional keys. So like up, down, left, and right. So there we go. That's a good instruction to let me know what's going to happen so that when I run your program, I can see what's going to happen. And then the very last step, what you need to do is you need to add to Studio. So you can see it right below the instructions, right below the notes and credits, that Add to Studio button. As long as you click that, and you click the Unit 2 project and hit OK, then I can then view your project and grade it. So make sure you do those last couple steps once you've completed your program.